Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go over all of the current NHL 22 news and rumors to kind of make sure that you guys have realistic expectations on what to hear and when you are going to find out about NHL 22. Now, obviously, EA is extremely tight-lipped about all of their releases, but there are some things that have been announced or at least been confirmed by other games, I guess, and we're going to break all that down just so you guys are all caught up and, again, set realistic expectations. Guys, if you are looking for the latest NHL 22 news and everything related to content for NHL 22, make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's get into it. So first things first, we need to go back to July 16th when FIFA 22 news tweeted out this statement in regards to FIFA 22, and I did announce this in a prior video, but again, I just want to bring everyone up to speed. If you are playing the PlayStation 5 version of FIFA 22, you will only be able to match up with and play against other players who are playing the PlayStation 5 version. The same is true for the Xbox Series XS version of FIFA 22, where only players in the Xbox Series X or S will be able to match each other. So now, what does that mean? It looks like FIFA is not going to be cross-console, but it's also not going to be cross-gen, meaning that you can't play someone on Xbox Series X if you're on an Xbox One. Same thing with PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. That means that there are 4 separate games, and if we're talking about HUT specifically, 4 separate HUT markets and player bases, which now obviously impacts NHL more than any other game. Now, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but judging by the past of the last 20 years, if FIFA or Madden don't have something, NHL is not getting it. So we can at least assume that this year we're not getting cross-console or cross-gen, which is a huge blow, specifically for NHL. I mentioned this in a prior video. Madden and FIFA, they can survive. Their player bases are so massive that it really won't impact search times all that much or just overall market, value and what they have available to them. In NHL, that's a completely different story because obviously hockey being the 4th most popular sport in North America alone, there's already a significantly smaller player base just based on the sport. That has nothing to do with EA or any hockey game, just hockey is a smaller, less popular sport. It's the best one, but nonetheless, it's going to be awfully tough. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest L's that we've seen specifically for NHL because, again, the player base is so small. I'm not even talking just about sports games. NHL needs cross-console more than any other video game that is either released yearly or has multiple games to it. Because there is enough of a player base if you were able to match up with someone on Xbox or cross-gen even, there would be a greater quality of life that just hasn't been seen in NHL. Again, a lot of people complain about not having a PC version. Guys, the reason there's no PC version is because that player base is so significantly small that there is really no value. People that bought it on PC would just never find anyone because it is by far the smallest player base among the other consoles when it comes to NHL. And the huge part about that is you're not going to see PC for NHL until there is cross-console because, again, it needs to have that in the game for it to really succeed. It's just such a quality of life. I can't tell you, again, I play this game for a living, essentially. I can't tell you how many times I matched up against the same 5 people in Division 1 this entire year. It was absolutely brutal. It really drives down the enjoyment of the game. And until EA creates cross-console and cross-gen, it's just going to be kind of a black cloud over NHL. I know a lot of people complain about not having GM connected or roster sharing, things like that. There is nothing in NHL that the developers can do that would help the game more than cross-console. So this was obviously a pretty big disappointment to see that FIFA is going 4 separate games because that means that NHL is as well. So now let's talk dates. Obviously this past year, the entire world was impacted by COVID-19 and the video game industry got hammered hard with it because it is much more difficult to create a video game at home when you've got to set up meetings and work around a schedule like that as opposed to just getting up and going down to the end of the office. The video game industry was crushed by it. Almost every single video game was delayed due to it, and honestly, that was to be expected, especially with NHL, where the NHL playoffs ended right before, I believe, the launch of the game, so you had this really weird timing, but it was delayed about a month, so instead of being an early September release, it was an early to mid-October release, and obviously, when it comes to yearly sports games, we already know the crunch that they're under when it comes to trying to hammer out a video game. I don't suspect we'll ever see it go back to September just because of how long and how hard it is. That means in 1 year, they would lose essentially a month of developing a video game in an already insane cycle, and I just don't see that. So October looks to be released. And we can sort of confirm that because on EA's latest earnings call, just like we saw last year, there was a release that said EA NHL will be released in Q3. Q3 is October and beyond, whereas in prior years, prior to NHL 21, it was in Q2, and that was in September, the back end of it. So we are going to get it in October. Now, will it be early, mid, or late October? I have no idea. That hasn't been confirmed. One can assume that it will stay right around the same release point as last year. Last year, it was October 13th for the early release and October 16th for the full release of the game. Now, jumping ahead to this year, taking a look at the October calendar, it would appear that the 13th and the 15th are the 12th and the 15th are probably where we're going to see that released again. I doubt it would go much further than that because the launch or the start of the next NHL season is just before that. So it's going to be definitely interesting because, again, we're so used to having the NHL video game come out before the start of a season. And there's potential where it doesn't happen this year because the NHL is going to go back to a regular schedule, the real NHL. So we'll have to wait and see. I would suspect that it's the 12th and 15th for early release and the full release of the game. There is a chance, though, that I could see it the 5th and the 8th just because they want to get the game out before the launch of the NHL season. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, that is not confirmed at all. So when are we going to get news about NHL 22? That is what everyone has been wondering. Where's the beta? Where's the trailers? Everything like that. So again, we can look back to last year as a guide as to when we're going to see some information on the game. This is a post that was made in August about the dates and times of the release of the game. So you see here, August 27th was our first look at NHL 21, and that was for World of Chell. Then mid-September, we got a gameplay in HUT, and then early October, we got Be a Pro and franchise mode right before the game released. Again, I would not expect a yearly franchise game to release content earlier because, again, it takes time to develop these trailers. You have to go through and make sure, like, marketing, everything is in line, that they're not showing things that aren't in the game. It has to be fully fleshed out before they release any sort of trailer. So I would be stunned if we see it any earlier. Maybe a week earlier in August, but I doubt we see anything earlier than that. Now, when it comes to just anything about NHL, I would expect we hear something about the beginning of August, okay? So it's July 28th right now. I would suspect by next week, probably in 2 weeks, we see something in regards to, like that graphic I just showed, where it's the plans of what they are going to show us. But that is where you need to set your expectations. End of August, early September is when you're going to see the majority of the info for NHL 22. That would be my guess. Again, not confirmed, but it's just something to look into. Now we need to talk about the last kind of like elephant in the room. There was a rumor going around about NHL 22 moving to Frostbite, which is hilarious because everyone has been wanting the NHL to go to Frostbite since Madden and FIFA did, and FIFA and Madden are going to Hypermotion, which is a completely new game engine, and now NHL is going to Frostbite, which they were already on so many years. It's just always so funny to me that the NHL video game is just so far behind those two. And again, it makes sense from a business standpoint. It sucks for myself and anyone else who loves the game. It's just a reality of business, right? Like if this game is significantly less, important in terms of just actual sales, obviously the majority of the resources are going to go to FIFA, which is the biggest game in the world for sports, and then Madden. So that being said, let's talk about Frostbite. It is not confirmed. As a game changer, I've not heard anything about Frostbite. So let's talk about the prospects of Frostbite going to NHL, if that were even the case. Again, I don't think it is, but who knows? We're going to a next-gen system. Something has to change, but again, I haven't heard anything about it. I think the clearest example of my take on Frostbite, a lot like when we switched to server-based. I think a lot of the population and the community think they want something that sounds good, but when it translates to actually how it's developed for hockey and how the game is played, it wasn't really understood. So I'll give you an example. People that experience lag when a game uses servers, essentially. If you see lag, there's lag on any server-based game. Obviously, the more servers, the better it is. But nonetheless, if you see server-based lag in Call of Duty, it is much less impactful than when you would see server-based lag in a hockey game where the motion is continuous. It is insanely quick, and any sort of spike, lag, or slowdown just impacts the game so hard that you're hyper-focused on it. That is the issue with server-based games. Now, going back to peer-to-peer, when you play peer-to-peer, it's great. However, if they were to go back to peer-to-peer when everyone complained about it being peer-to-peer, not being server-based, I think that brings a lot of like the old cheating things and a lot of other things into the game that they need to fix. Honestly, I think the game is best played on peer-to-peer, and I don't know how they're going to fix that. Now, how does that play into Frostbite? Well, Madden and FIFA developers have long complained about how bad that engine is to develop a sports game on. It is not meant for a sports game. It is meant for Battlefield. That is what it was designed for. Will it look incredible? Absolutely. But if the developers already had such a hard time developing on the prior engine, going to Frostbite, I don't think is going to be a huge win in terms of overall things that they can maneuver. Will it be different? Maybe it's easier. I have no idea. I don't develop the game. It's just, I'm taking words from FIFA and Madden developers that have long complained about this engine. The things I think that it would improve is, again, graphics. Frostbite graphics are incredible, and I think that the NHL, it would be a huge jump, especially with it going to the new console. Now, I don't know how that would play in if all of the games are going to be released on the old gen, and those are separate games, and the new gen. That's why I'm a little hesitant to think that NHL is going to Frostbite, just because they would have to develop the game on the old consoles as well as the new one on a new engine, and it just... I don't know how that would play out. Here is what I want, regardless of what engine is. I would love to see more layers added to the game. So pucks going through sticks or through the net, through bodies, things like that. That changes if there are more layers added to the game. And if Frostbite able to do that, I think NHL would succeed a lot more. Again, the puck going through things is a limitation on the actual layers that are in game. If a stick is an individual layer as opposed to being tied to the body, that changes a lot of how the game is played. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. But again, I have no idea, and I sort of doubt that it's going to Frostbite. Again, this is all just rumors, and I wanted to address it because everyone asked about it. Do I think it will be a win? I don't know. Again, when you talk about NHL, it's always about 2 years behind FIFA and Madden when it comes to modes and mechanics and things like that. It worries me that then we're just trying to catch up, and I don't know. It's always tough. It's sad, but again, it's just a reality of business, and it is what it is. When it comes to the cover athlete, I know that is always so popular to talk about. I've never been jacked up and excited for the cover reveal. I don't know. That's just me personally. Again, I have no insights on who that is going to be. However, I would take some guesses. McKinnon screams the one that's obvious, but I really don't know. I think that Crosby eventually in his career will say yes, and the reason why Crosby has not been on a cover is not because EA does not want to have Crosby on it. He just simply does not want to be on it. So at some point, I would think he says yes, and then whatever year that he says yes, it'll immediately be Sidney Crosby. But I don't know who it would be. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. Let me know who you think the cover athlete is going to be. I really think it'll be McKinnon or Cale Makar. He signed that new deal, just electric. We'll have to wait and see. But guys, that'll do it for all of the latest news and stuff regarding NHL 22. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Give the video a like if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content and the latest news for NHL 22. Have a good one, guys.